And welcome back to the episode of the Geek Centurions. It's me, your boy Eli, with good old Joey over here.
Hey, how's it going?
And we're talking about Spider-Man and No Way Home. We saw the movie, we just came back from it, and this is gonna be no spoilers, no spoilers at all, and that is gonna be very hard because if you've seen the movie, you can understand why I'm saying it is gonna be very hard for us to do a non-spoiler talk about this movie.
Absolutely. This I think was one of the most anticipated Marvel movies of the year. And it definitely, I think, delivers on quite a few fronts.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, we've seen from the trailers, this is sort of not like, it shares tones with, like, Spider-Verse, but it's more of a multiverse kind of story.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And we'll go into this more, but I feel like because a lot of people are like, oh, is it this kind of movie with a Sinister Six? Is it a Spider-Verse movie? And I'm just gonna run out and say it's really neither of those.
It's its own thing.
Yeah, but it borrows elements so well from those other things.
Yeah.
And yeah, you go.
Yeah, no, and it definitely puts its own spin to it, and it really sort of just lays it all on the line, and it's sort of a nice capstone for this sort of, I guess, trilogy of movies we have. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, this is definitely not like the end of Spider-Man movies at all.
No. They've said they're going to do more, and the way it ends, you can kind of see why.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'll say this for now. I really, really enjoyed this movie. It's something that I was looking forward to, and as a Spider-Man fan, I am very pleased with what I saw today, and it was just so great. I can tell you right now, we may not have had the same amount of people in that theater, but the end game levels of hype and excitement and crowd reaction is just as good.
Yeah, considering sort of how the world, current world situation going on, and we did go to a sort of a more earlier screening around like midday, so not a huge amount of people, but there was definitely some crowd reactions and applause and a lot of that stuff, which I won't lie, I kind of missed. I kind of missed that when going to the movies, because there aren't a whole lot of people going to there because obviously some people aren't going to be like that, and some services like Disney Plus and HBO Max do just show the movies at home, so you don't have to go. But I think this case they were like, no, it's going to be only in theaters, so But yeah, no, it's the crowd reactions, at least in our theater, were pretty crazy considering like that theater wasn't even like, it was like half full, I'm pretty sure, by the end. Once everyone was seated, and we still got some pretty good noise there, so that was pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm. The 1 minute reviews, yes. Let's get to that. I'm getting the timer out right now, and so those of you who don't know, we usually do like a 1 minute take on what essentially is our thoughts on these movies with the good and the bad, and we usually try to sum it up in 1 minute. And some people say it's a little short, but I think we can get it done.
Yeah.
It's mostly the conversation that we like to do, right. And it saves us from spoiling a lot of stuff.
Absolutely.
All right, Joe, you go first. Your minute's up.
All right, so Spider-Man Far From Home, No Way Home, is probably the best out of the MCU trilogy of Spider-Man movies. It really hits a lot of the points that it wants to hit. There's a lot of emotional moments, a lot of comedic moments that, I think it really takes the Marvel formula and really creates a good, solid experience. The way it uses all the past characters that show up, the past villains and stuff, works very well. And the whole plot of this movie is just Peter just wanting to like figure out just a basic way of like not having to like hurt these people, but to try to find some way to help them if he can and send them back home. And yeah, he goes through such a very intense experience for himself, and I think it's a solid movie.
All right, you went a little bit over, but I saved you some time. Any negatives, or are you good?
Oh,
I know your time's up, but do you have any?
the only negative I can think of. I mean, I guess there is like one bit.
Hold up. Bueno,
Dile a Joy si quiere spray o quiere limonada.
get a
Aquí hay
Sprite.
limonada. Pregúntale.
Right.
Aquí hay limonada.
Él me dijo Sprite.
Sprite.
¿Seguro?
See,
Yeah.
Ma,
Hey.
Sprite.
Ok, bye.
All right, bye.
You were saying?
Yeah. I guess my only negative I can think of, it is kind of spoiler related, but I mean, it's kind of treated as a one bit joke. It has to do with Ned. I mean, if you've seen the movie, I think you kind of know what I'm talking about. But yeah, they do a bit with Ned that I'm like kind of like iffy on, but at the end of the day, it's kind of more of a nitpick because it doesn't really like it's not like super like movie breaking or like logic breaking.
Yeah.
For what happens with Ned.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of the only complaint I can think about because everything else in this movie is all solid. I guess actually there is like one moment because I think in the trailers we do see like essentially Electro, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Like, if you have watched the trailers, then you do kind of see that Electro shows up in some form. And I think when we first see him, he does look. He has, I guess, does look kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like the CG doesn't look right, but I mean, it definitely feels like it gets fixed. In later when we later see him, like
Okay, you and I might have to talk about this. I think I know what you're talking about, but we're trying not to get too into spoilers.
Yeah.
I guess it's my turn, and so I gotta say this about Spider-Man: No Way Home. I do agree that this is probably the best one of the trilogy. It does things that not only elevates the world, but also the story and our characters. The use of characters from a different universe, which the villains, is used to great effect. Now I think a lot of people were feeling that whether or not this movie was going to be as bloated as Spider-Man 3 or Amazing Spider-Man 2, and thankfully it is not. It's paced in a way that really helps out within the film, makes you like really care about these characters and still want to see how it's done. And the way all these villains are acting, it makes sense for me. I don't really have much negatives because it's really hard for me to find any, because I really enjoyed it from beginning to end. And man, there's a moment that made me go, oh, I'm about to cry. there's so the emotional center is there, and I think if you're a Spider-Man fan, you'll love how this movie ends, and we'll love to see how this movie show will continue. But yeah, it's I think we can talk about the bloatedness if you want, and essentially because like I think that was the big fear that a lot of people were having, because like the last time we saw these many villains was in the last two, in Spider-Man 3 and in Amazing Spider-Man 2, and that was generally like the big problem with it. There's too many villains for this one plot.
Yeah. I mean, Spider-Man 3, as we know, it had Harry Osborn as Green Goblin. We had Sandman, and of course Venom gets thrown in pretty much randomly at the end. And yeah, it does seem bloated. I mean, obviously, I think with just removing like just Venom showing up at the end, probably would have helped that movie a lot, because really it's more the conflict between Sandman and Harry. And of course, Amazing Spider-Man 2 is just, that movie is more or less was half Spider-Man stuff and just half like set up for like, I think what Sony wanted, like a big Sinister Six setup. Because I mean, obviously we see like a bunch of like, there's that whole sequence of like Oscorp where it shows all the stuff like the Vulture wings and the Doc's tentacle arms and all that stuff. And it all just felt really like disheveled, like Electro and Rhino and of course another Harry Osborn Green Goblin. Here, I think the reason why it works is mainly just because Spider-Man is more or less trying to capture them all, and sort of like at least wants to help them if he can. Because I mean, again, as we see from the trailers, Strange is like, we gotta send them back. They all, all these guys die fighting Spider-Man. We gotta send them back. It's their fate. And Peter's like, no, what if we can like fix them somehow so that they don't have to, end up like that, right?
Yeah. And essentially, that's kind of the whole thing within this movie. It's like, also I think it helps that we already know these characters. We've had and I guess you can say that as a negative, where you need to know who these characters are from the previous movie to really feel attached. But at the same time, the way they work is like, no, they're meant to have already their histories, and you can kind of watch it without really knowing who they are.
Yeah, and it is pretty much kind of what like the Marvel movies kind of do as well. It's like you don't have to watch like every single Marvel movie to get everything, because realistically you don't have to, because you can watch them all if you want to get like a full grasp of situations. But it's like going into the first Avengers movie and you only ever watch the Iron Man movies. You know who Iron Man is, and you can get the gist of all the other characters just from like watching and how they interact, with Iron Man and all that stuff. And that's sort of just the beauty of the Marvel movies, is that they don't force you to go watch every movie, but you still feel like you want to watch all the movies, because at the end of the day, they all sort of like have things that tie together, and you can be like, oh yeah, I know what that is,
Yeah.
The audience can have that aha moment. And it is kind of similar here, because, I mean, let's face facts. First Spider-Man movie ever came out in 2002. We are nearly 20 years away from that. Next year will be like the 20th anniversary of the first ever Spider-Man movie.
Damn, that feels old.
Yeah, it is crazy. So there is a sizable portion of the modern audience that knows who Spider-Man is just from watching either the original Sam Raimi trilogy or the Andrew Garfield movies. It would be extremely hard for anyone if you have to be living under a rock to not know about the previous versions of Spider-Man running around in the movie stuff. So yes, there is that sort of, I guess, criticism, like, oh, you feel like you have to watch all these other Spider-Man movies. Like, you really don't, because even then, in this movie, they do sort of give, like, the backstory, more or less, of a lot of these characters.
They give you the Cliff Notes version right there.
Yeah, they sort of give the Cliff Notes versions of backstories for these characters. But, again, it's not like, it's simple enough for people to understand. It's like, oh, Otto Octavius, he was a scientist, he knew Peter Parker, he had this whole son thing he was trying to make, and, he has tentacles, and he's kind of evil.
No, see, that's my thing. Like, a lot of people say that, but, for me, it's like, you can just easily pop those movies in and just watch them.
That is also true. It's probably not that hard to find those movies anyway, right?
Also, I mean, like, if they can make you, like, I think the one thing they did well was they make you want to, like, check out these movies. Like, oh man, like, like, this Doc Ock villain seems really cool, and this Green Goblin guy seems also really cool, and they have their own movies. We can go watch that. So why don't we? The movies with Toby and Andrew, and those movies in themselves, some more than others, are kind of their own little, like, they're great in their own way. Some one or two better than the others. But not to say anything about that. But I think that's one of the issues that a lot of people have, and I'm just like, that's a really dumb issue.
I mean, yeah, like, I don't think it's like, again, it feels more like I feel like that would have been an issue if we were talking about, like, if for some random reason they brought, like, the 70s Spider-Man, like a dude from, like, the 70s show, or, like, some older obscure stuff from Spider-Man stuff.
Like, if they went real, like, Spider-Verse kind of situation.
Yeah, then it's like, who the hell is this guy? What the hell?
Because remember, and this is going on to our next next discussion. Because a lot of people felt and were worried about this like trying to be too much like Spider-Verse, like Into the Spider-Verse, the animated movie that was like amazing. And like I said earlier, it's not really in a Spider-Verse movie, and it's not really a Sinister Six movie.
Yeah. That is also the other thing. Because I mean, there is like multiverse shenanigans going on.
Yeah.
It's Peter wants to have everyone that knew he's Peter Parker, Spider-Man. Like forget it. But as soon as he realizes that includes MJ and Ned and his Aunt May and a bunch of other people, messes the spell, and now we got altered multiverse shenanigans running around.
And it's just that. It's just that.
Yeah.
It's nothing more. They're not hopping to other realities or, meeting some weird or wacky, other spider people. It's just that. Just those people just came out of nowhere. That's it. Nothing else. Even the idea of the Sinister Six, which is essentially like 6 of the strongest villains in Spider-Man's rogues team up to fight Spider-Man. And that's not what happens here. Kind of.
Yeah, no. I mean, obviously, Spider-Man has to fight these villains and stuff, but it's more of a... it is a bit more containment and trying to send them back kind of thing, rather than just, oh, they're out here and now they're going to try to rule New York or whatever, and no, it doesn't happen. And I think the thing with like the idea of the Spider-Verse like storyline is usually I feel like it's always at least the movie sort of sells it as like it's a existential threat.
Yeah, it's something big and it has to involve all the Spider people or something small. Because the way I've always phrased like Into the Spider-Verse, the movie, right, it's a fantastic story and introduction to Miles Morales, but also to establish that. The idea that anyone can be Spider-Man, because throughout the whole time, Miles is thinking, I can't be Spider-Man, but to be Spider-Man is a leap of faith. Anyone can be Spider-Man. Doesn't matter if you're an anime chick, a pig, a noir dude, or whatever. Anyone can be Spider-Man. And in this one, it doesn't really like do any that. It kind of does its own thing, and it doesn't really do a Spider-Verse movie. It's just nice, clean, and simple.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said with the Sinister Six, it's like not essentially. Well, first of all, the method of the members of the Sinister Six aren't even all there. You have some of them, but they all have different motivations of being there or reacting to the situation that's going on. And it's really like not that. It's like you said earlier. It's a containment movie. We're gonna get all these guys and then we're gonna take them back home. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah, and and at the end of the day, that's sort of what it is. Like, it's like, there is like I guess maybe the existential threat of like the multiverse ripping apart and the MCU reality getting filled with a bunch of crazy stuff. But it's not it's not really like super there. It's more sort of like, okay, we got some visitors from another universe. We gotta like stop them. We gotta like fix this problem before it gets really out of hand. But yeah, it's like it doesn't go too hard. I do enjoy the fact that it does not try to copy those two. It doesn't try to be like a live action version of the Spider-Verse movie. It does its own thing, which is I think what people wanted. Because
we already got Spider-Verse 2 coming out.
Yeah, like we can have that sort of Spider-Verse style of like just here's a bunch of crazy wacky spider people, living their lives and doing that.
God knows what.
Yeah. And the MCU can continue to have its sort of contained area and deal with its own consequences and stuff.
Yeah. I will say one thing I did like about this movie is that it kind of addresses a lot of complaints that a lot of people tend to have with this iteration of Spider-Man, and it handles it in a way where, yeah, I love that you're doing that, because a lot of people were like, oh, he doesn't do this, this, or that. You know, he's more of like a Tony Stark Jr., which is not in the comics, and I'm one of those people who agrees that that's not him, but you know, I'm fine with this iteration of Peter Parker. But they do address some of that issue, and they do try to like answer that.
Yeah, because I feel like in the end, like the situation that Spider-Man gets put into this movie, you know, the whole Mysterio thing, his secret identity is revealed, it does sort of hamper him.
Mm-hmm. It shows that he can't be Tony, because Tony was like, "Hey, I'm Iron Man. I got millions of dollars."
Yeah, and like Spider-Man, at the end of the day, he's just like,
he's a kid.
Yeah, so they do sort of somewhat resolve like whether or not he's gonna go to jail or whatever pretty early on in the film. But yeah, he still has that stigma of people now know who he is. Tons of people are like, he killed Mysterio, you know, screw him. It's like, no, he's still a good guy. He's Spider-Man, and you know,
he saved my life.
Yeah, and so there's just like a whole contention of like,
yeah, because the thing is that as much as I like this iteration of Tony Stark, he is very egotistical. Mm-hmm. Like he loves the attention. Peter, no, he doesn't love the attention. Because if he was like a Tony Stark Jr., he'd be like, "Fuck yeah, I'm Spider-Man. Flip, 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 flip. There you go.
Yeah.
Wrote my name and win. I'm awesome."
Mm-hmm.
He is awesome, but that's not what he is. There's a reason why he's known as the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He's always helping out people.
Yeah.
Without trying to get people to know who he is. And honestly, that is like apparent immediately in the beginning of the movie, especially because like they show, hey, look, it's gonna be all right. Just, you know, keep treading on, and then everyone's like, and then you see this shot in the trailers where like he's trying to walk somewhere, and everyone's like taking photos, paparazzi, and asking him questions. Even in the school, they're like up there, they're like taking photos of Spider-Man.
Yeah, and like obviously the school administrators and stuff are just like, yeah, hey, feel free to, you know, walk on the walls or swing the class, you know, just do yourself.
Yeah, right? like okay, this is like early in the movie, so I don't mind like talking about that.
But yeah, but it is like a funny joke they do.
Yeah, there's a funny joke amongst like the teachers where like we know you're a good guy, and then this one guy's like, no, you killed Mysterio. It's like, Mysterio's right.
It's like, no, don't listen to. I think he's like the gym teacher or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, don't listen to him. He's a conspiracy theorist. Don't worry about it. But yeah, you know, like that is sort of like I think something that he has to deal with. I mean, that is sort of like half of like the setup for the plot. You know, he's like, I don't like this attention. It's hurting people I care about. You know, like they're getting harassed too and stuff. I just want it to end. I want people to forget that I was Spider-Man.
Yeah, because this isn't what I wanted. I'm not Tony.
Yeah,
and it helps because that was the idea in No Way Home, where like they try to really hard to make him as like a Tony Stark Jr. They even gave him like similar glasses, but like even Happy told him, "You're not Tony Stark. Mm-hmm. No one can ever be Tony. But you can be just as good as Tony, even better." And I'm like, yeah, that's it right there. And then like we see that go on in this movie because, like I said earlier, he's not Tony. He does not like the attention. He does not like any of the publicity that comes with being Spider-Man. And if you're like a fan of the comics, you guys know that him like everyone knowing who he is kind of screws around a lot of his stuff. Mm-hmm. Like the moment he revealed himself in Civil War, bad shit went down, and he's like, "Why did I do that?
Yeah,
why did I do that?" And it led to the worst story in Spider-Man history, and we're not talking about that right now.
Yes, the Clone Saga. I remember this.
Yes, the Clone Saga, the worst book that has ever happened. And I'm not saying that ironically; it's still pretty bad, but it is the worst because we're not talking about the worst one.
One more day.
Fuck you. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, and I'm kind of glad they don't try to like take any inland through that storyline. I'll say that right now.
Thank fucking Christ.
Yeah. But overall, I mean,
You
yeah.
stay over there, Mephisto. I see you.
Yeah, I don't know where Mr. shows up. I was like, hey, Peter, I got a deal for you. See?
And it's Al Pacino.
Yeah, that'd be funny.
That would be
I
funny.
like that because he was the devil in that one movie, right?
Yeah, it was Cradle. No, I was like Cradle. That's something else. That's a band. It's whatever. Who cares?
Yeah.
Al Pacino, devil. I'm down with it.
Yeah, that'd be funny.
Just don't talk to Spider-Man though.
Yeah. But yeah, I think. I mean, I don't know. Do you have any sort of critiques of the film, or like?
It's hard for me to talk about like anything negative, because I'm not gonna lie. I was in there. I was on a high, dude. I'm like, I turned my brain off. I was a Spider-Man fan first and foremost.
Yeah, I don't know. I try to my best.
We talked about this on the way home.
Yeah, like I try my best to like enter movies with an open mind, like just forget all my biases of anything and just sort of just look at straight it on, like try to like determine how it is as a movie on itself. And yeah, like besides the whole Ned thing, which is spoilers, and I'm not gonna get too into it. Just that they do something with Ned, it's kind of like iffy, but it doesn't break the movie for me. There's very little like things that I feel like would be like detract from my enjoyment of this movie.
Yeah, same.
I felt like maybe like the portrayal of some villains like Doc Ock or whatever would have been were probably something I was kind of worried about, because like we have Doc Ock as a villain again, even though as we saw in like the end of Spider-Man 2, he sort of redeems himself. He stops his little solar machine thing, and we have him here. He's a villain, and I was like really worried they were just gonna like, with all these villains, just like sort of like just have them just be generically bad and like do not do a whole lot with them. But no, they still have what makes them the characters, which is really nice. So it really does feel like they put in the thought and effort to like try to like preserve like these versions of the characters that we've seen, that people have seen before, and even people who haven't seen like the other two Spider-Man movies, they can clearly tell, all right, these people, there's good in them, they just need it to be they just need to be helped.
A second chance, if you will. Which is such a Spider-Man thing. It's like Spider-Man is like, not to say he hasn't killed villains before, or he hasn't killed any, but it's like they die by their own hubris.
Yeah.
Like even in the movies, like going back to like Spider-Man 1, Mysterio. I don't remember any in like Amazing Spider-Man, but like they die because of their own machinations.
Yeah.
Green Goblin gets stabbed. Mysterio gets angry and he tries to shoot everything down, and he gets shot himself.
I mean, even Spider-Man 3, Harry sacrifices himself, and of course, Eddie dies trying to reform with the Venom suit, but the bomb goes in and they both blow up. I can't think of anything much from the Union Spider-Man series. I mean, Connors doesn't die; he gets more or less healed.
Yeah.
So, I forget what happens in Spider-Man 2 though, but I'm pretty sure they don't die either. But yeah, point
at
is,
least one of them survives. At least.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it's one of those things where like, it's like he almost never tries to kill, and if they can be reformed, the better. Because like that's like, and we see Sandman, which is the best example of that in Spider-Man stories, where like he gets redeemed, and he's still that character through and through, which is weird. Okay, I will say this is a nitpick, but it's probably because they couldn't get him in like to record, so they just probably CGI'd him in there. Flint Marko, Sandman. But most of the time, he is Sandman.
Yeah, he kind of just stays as just as a Sandman. We do see him towards the end where he does show human. But yeah, I could kind of
like we gotta show you a human at some point.
Yeah,
and it's not really that spoilery.
Yeah, and I could kind of see what you mean by like them not, because it doesn't. Part of me feels like that might have been like old footage, like green screened in, but I could be wrong. He definitely does look old.
Yeah,
because I mean, obviously Norman Osborn,
Yeah.
he looks old.
Yeah.
Alfred Molina looks his age now.
Mm.
Same thing goes with Jamie Foxx and. I mean, to be fair, the lizard is mostly CG for most parts. It doesn't
Who
matter.
cares? Yeah.
Who cares?
But anyways, I feel like this movie in of itself, it's really like, even like I said before, I was on like a Spider-Man high where I couldn't even tell there was like anything bad about it. But even thinking about it now, I was like, damn, I can't really think of anything bad. It's like almost a perfect Spider-Man movie. In the same way as like Into the Spider-Verse is almost a perfect Spider-Man movie.
Mm-hmm.
But both are perfect for their own reasons.
Right.
Like if you told me to choose which one's better, it's like I couldn't make that decision.
Yeah, they're both good in their own ways, but neither are, I think, superior to the other. They're just like both of them are like really good.
Yeah, it's like fuck, I can't choose.
Yeah.
Like I may choose one over the other for different reasons, but it's like, but then at the same time I'll be like, okay, but that one also is pretty good for this and that reason. Oh, but this one's good for this and that reason too. It's like I would have a conundrum.
Mm-hmm.
Like that would be me.
Yeah.
Choosing those two movies.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I think this is like prime Spider-Man. It's probably one of the best examples of Spider-Man. And I don't think, I'm surprised we didn't talk about this. The use of J. Jonah Jameson. It's like, I don't like the idea of people kind of connecting him to be like sort of a Alex Jonesy kind of character, because to me he was never like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the way they work him in this story, especially with his dialogue, is very much like, yeah, that's Jameson to a T in the books. Just like this, because like if you don't know, sometimes Jameson would be like that sort of the negative things he hears.
Yeah.
Like he spouts not actually what he's thinking, but like things that are connected to what he thinks.
Mm-hmm.
So like if he says like he's a menace to society, he brings more problems than he does, that's because probably something Peter to himself he's thinking, and Jonah's the one spouting it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a great reading, and which is why I like it better. And because we're obviously getting more movies, if like they do this with Jameson, where like he changes he has a a second chance, if you will. He changes has a new leaf and becomes a better person, like he and currently in the comics, where he's like surprisingly a supportive person for Spider-Man after he reveals who he is to him.
Mm-hmm.
Which will probably not get because of how this movie gets. But anyways, I'm still really, really enjoying this movie.
Yeah.
You have anything else to say to it?
Not really. I mean, Doctor Strange's role in the movie is pretty. They don't overuse him, I guess, because he definitely serves as a bit of a foil to Peter for a little bit, and he's sort of a bit apprehensive to Peter's plans and stuff, and they get into a bit of a tussle. Right? We've seen that in the trailers. But yeah, it is sort of like a neat use of like using the extended universe in the MCU, of like relying on that stuff. Yeah, and I think that's they do a pretty good job with Strange. There is like a Doctor Strange related thing in the post credits. I'm not sure if that would be considered spoilerish.
Post or after?
The after.
Oh, I mean, not really, because there's nothing really story breaking for that involving for Spider-Man.
Right. I mean, we will say this right now. Like, obviously, we have like two, an after credits scene in this movie.
Stay for both.
But the final one is definitely more Strange related than Spider-Man related. I'll say that much, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, you were hyped, and that just like even for me, the post credit one was like, oh, we going there. I was like seriously hyped.
Yeah, the post credit one, the one after the first credits, leaves a lot of implications. Which is like, okay, so that's what we're gonna be doing now,
and I am hyped.
Yep, yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, you hear someone's plan for this character, and then you find out, oh no, we know what we're doing with this character. You don't got a word to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm hyped for that. And yeah, the after credit scene, stay for it. It's like, if I were to compare it to any like after credit scenes in the past, it's the one after. It's the after credit scene for Captain America.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah, like that one where it yeah, I remember that one being sort of a mini trailer for the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
Like just various clips of stuff going on.
And let's just say it's that long too.
Yeah, it pretty much is sort of like, you know, that for Doctor Strange and what's going to be happening in the future.
Also, you're gonna love some of the dialogue with some of these characters.
Yeah, they do. They definitely they know what they were doing with a lot of the dialogue choices.
Mm-hmm. And it's even funnier because there was one moment I'm like, okay, are they ad-libbing this? This feels very ad-libbed.
Yeah.
Because you know what ad-lib means is like they're just going off script.
Yeah, it's off script, but they keep it in the movie because it's that good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Alrighty then. Is that gonna be it for us?
That's it. I mean, you want to give your rating?
Oh yeah. Oh god, this is gonna be.
Yeah, because on the way home you were telling me like this is a hard movie for you to rate.
Yeah, because like, I think I'm gonna do it. I think I'm gonna give this movie like a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, this movie's a 10 out of 10 for me too. It's just good in the same way. Like for me, Spider-Verse is a 10 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it hits all the strides that I want.
Yeah, and it's probably. I think this is the first movie I've rated 10 out of 10 on this podcast.
I think I'm on that same boat too. I don't think I've rated a 10 out of 10. No, it was Kong vs. Godzilla. But we admit that as Godzilla fans, we give it a 10.
Oh yeah. I just got feel. Yeah. No, that. Yeah, you're right. But even at not being a Spider-Man fan, not even if I wasn't like big into the MCU, I still think this movie just hits all the right notes. It does all the things it wanted to do and executes them either well or excellently.
Yeah, and it's just so good.
Mm-hmm.
So good. All right, guys, that's the end of our episode. We hope you guys enjoy. Go watch No Way Home. There's no other way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do enjoy this, be sure to follow us on all social media sites like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at the Geek Centurions. We are most active on Instagram. And if you are an audio listener who wants to give a face to the voice, on our Instagram we have a link to all of our other podcasts that we're part of and the YouTube that we are officially part of, that we officially have for all, so you can put a face to the voice. The podcasts that we're officially part of are Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, all that good stuff. And we do have a Patreon where you guys can support us in any form of way. And yeah, that's about it. Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm willing to say it's the best Spider-Man movie. It is a tough battle between that and Into the Spider-Verse.
Mm-hmm.
I can't decide between the two.
Yeah, I'll say it's the best. I will say this: it's probably the best out of this trilogy. Obviously, Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man 2, and obviously and Into the Spider-Verse are also heavy contenders in best Spider-Man movie ever. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's really good.
It's really good. All right, guys, that's about it. You guys have a good one. Go watch Spider-Man, and remember, no spoilers. Peace.